Welcome to Why I Left, a podcast that explores the Great Resignation. I'm your host, Brian Akar. Join me as I chronicle real stories from real people about the reasons they decided to leave their jobs during the pandemic and what has happened since. Hello, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of Why I Left. In today's episode, our guest left a senior role as a brand manager at one of the world's most admired companies and became a thriving entrepreneur in the field of personal branding and marketing. Get ready to be inspired as we sit down with Rachel B. Lee, the CMO and co-owner of Standout Authority. Rachel's journey is a testament to the power of authenticity, connection, and serving others. And she shares insights on personal branding, LinkedIn strategies, and how she helps high-powered professionals attract, engage, and convert their ideal audience without selling. So get ready to learn how to make a lasting impact in the digital age. Let's dive in. All right, welcome back. So our guest today is Rachel B. Lee. Rachel is a trailblazing entrepreneur, top marketing voice on LinkedIn, and the CMO of Standout Authority. After leaving her role as a senior brand manager at Gartner, Rachel embarked on a mission to help high-powered business professionals become standout authorities in their industries. Now, alongside her husband, Joshua B. Lee, the CEO of Standout Authority, Rachel has built a platform that focuses on authentic connection, personal branding, and leveraging the power of LinkedIn. And if you followed my show, you know I wouldn't have one without LinkedIn. So can't wait to hear about that. Now, with a wealth of experience in marketing, strategy, and scaling brands, Rachel is here not only to share why she left, but to share her expertise on how to build a strong personal brand, drive visibility through content, and become a thought leader with massive influence. So welcome to the show, Rachel B. Lee. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Brian. Can you just introduce me all the time? I'm a trailblazer. I like it.
Hey, when we got connected, I did, do my little research and I was like, wow, this is, what's beautiful about LinkedIn is that there's so many people doing amazing things out there that truthfully, you just may not come across. And so I'm very thankful, my brother introduced us and, seeing your content, I'm like, wow, she is doing amazing things. And then just to watch your trajectory, I don't want to steal your thunder here, but just to watch your trajectory, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to speak to her. So that kind of leads us into a perfect segue of, before we kind of get into your pivot, right? Just tell us a little bit about, your upbringing, kind of where you call home now.
Well, thanks for having me. First of all, Brian, great to be connected. I grew up in Los Angeles. So grew up specifically in the Woodland Hills, Tarzana area. In case anybody's from LA and they're listening and wondering. Yes, I have an 818 phone number still. Like in the song 818. That's me.
Yep.
Okay. So I grew up in Southern California. And my family is still in the majority of my family is still in Southern California. But I took the leap and left to go to Wisconsin. When I was going to my undergrad, I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And so that took me to the Midwest, which was a total game changer for my entire life. Mm-hmm. Cows, cheese, 0-degree temperatures, all the things. But the best part is being around Midwesterners. Just absolutely love the soul of the Midwest. And so I did my undergrad. I got my BBA from the business school there. And through the process, my whole family is in business, whether entrepreneurial side, my dad is a CFO, CPA. And I've always known that the business would be where I accelerated. But what really connected me throughout my life was people and creativity. And to me, in business, the only way to be creative and think about people, like truly, how do I deliver value and serve people, is through marketing. That's what we do.
Absolutely.
And so marketing is how I've started my career and how we've built this business, you know, a standout authority. So I am a top voice in marketing because I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for a while. I'm really passionate about it. It's how I connect in business. I was working with a marketing agency, so I have that agency side first, working at a company called WI Walton Isaacson, led by the amazing Aaron Walton. And I was doing, I mean, this was in 2010, I started there. Well, I was an intern first when I was summers in college, Brian. And I mean, we were working on like the first Twitter focused ticket giveaways. We were doing secret concerts for Axe. I worked a ton with Unilever and specifically on the Axe brand. And it was really the beginning of using social media as a way to connect with an audience and really surprise and delight and bring awareness in new ways. And that was the first things that I was working on, experiential activations and social media, and working a ton on with big brands, particularly Unilever. So more on the CPG, consumer product goods.
That's amazing.
And that's how I started.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so that connection, because as I was, looking at your background, it's marketing through and through, right? And this extensive kind of run in the marketing field. So you mentioned, so obviously your family's been in business, but it sounded like more so on the financial side, at least for your father and others. What was it specifically about marketing that kind of really drew you to that space?
Well, kind of what I was saying is that in business, if you think about the traditional functions in business, right? Operations and finance, marketing, engineering, let's call it, right? You think about these traditional functions and business units. For me, in business, marketing is the way to really get to people,
Mm.
and it's really about how do I speak to Brian, this human, this soul, and deliver value through my product or service. And so for me, that always has made sense in some way. That's just how my brain works. And I'm creative. I actually never really claimed being creative, but now that I'm entrepreneurial and own a business and have really shifted, who I am over the last few years, I own my creativity, being able to write and create content. The only way you don't, it's not that sexy to do that in finance or in legal
True. Very true.
or, operations maybe can get a little creative, I guess, could be, but marketing's the place to bring that creativity alive. So that's for me why I immediately gravitated towards marketing in undergraduate and in my first jobs.
Oh, that's awesome. And so, the origins of the show, I really got started because of the pandemic, really after the pandemic. And so I'd love to kind of take you back to that time. So let's go back to March of 2020. Pandemic really starts. Talk to us a little bit about how the pandemic affected you.
Well, I remember it. All of us remember it very distinctly, but I think it was March 13th. Was it March 13th that
Yep.
officially
Yeah.
everything?
It's like 13th, 14th. It's like right those 2 days.
Yeah. Like, I remember, so at the time I was working for Gartner and I was at our office and I was the brand manager and looking at the brand as a whole and marketing strategy for software advice, which is a kind of arm of Gartner digital markets. I won't get into the structure of it, but that's the job I was at the time. And I was at those offices and we actually, Brian, because it's right when South by Southwest is.
Yes.
So I had pushed hard with my CMO and the team to do a sort of influencer PR focused event around South by Southwest for software advice. And we had to cancel it. So we were in the midst of canceling it as soon as we got the news. And we, were, everybody worked from home as everybody experienced. And then the kids, the two stepchildren, and all of a sudden the kids are now schooling from home. And I put that in quotes, right? Because it was a mess.
That's the nice way to put it.
And that's what was going on. For us, it was, I wasn't thinking at the time about being part of the Great Resignation. I was thinking about, oh shit, like this is big. We have to adjust our business. Immediately, I was working with the team on, new content, new storylining around how small businesses are going to face this challenge with everything closing. And as you know, at the time, like it was really challenging. And then you had all the SBA loans and opportunities and coverages. So at work, and just really being able to get into the mindset of our people, our audience, and then how do we support them as best as we can in a time of great change. And those are small businesses using different kinds of software at the time.
Yeah, no, definitely. And when you think about that time frame, right? So it had, like you said, it impacted everybody, and people really started to kind of look at their jobs different, look at themselves differently, all those things. So what were some of the learnings that you started to pick up during this time, whether internally or industry wide?
Oh man, there's, I think one of the greatest learnings of COVID is just, listen, we know change is constant and all of that. It's really, if we know change is constant, anything can happen. How are you going to be super adaptable and be able to restructure and go with the change so that you don't get stampeded by it, but actually not just survive, but thrive.
Right.
And so I think that the first 3 months was all about that. Not just as an employee and working on a big brand and thinking about, Gartner as a company made many big moves, as many corporations and enterprises did, to make sure they pull back, right, on a lot of spend, made a lot of decisions preparing for the worst. So I think there was a lot of that side, just witnessing and experiencing that as an employee, as part of a big corporation, then as support to smaller businesses, and thinking about how do we really support through this massive change. I mean, when so many businesses, like literally their entire everything is just shut down. And then the other thing, so that ability to adapt and, how do I actually get through this? Not just surviving and thriving, but I mean, also from a personal standpoint, Brian, I mean, it was mentally for all of us, right? It was mentally straining. Watching the news and seeing the children and being way too many people in the house at the same time. And, all of those pieces. And again, the mentality for me is just, how do we take this day by day, one step at a time, and knowing that things always get better. They always do. We'll get through it. And that's just my mentality through anything,
Absolutely. And, looking back, and so what, is there anything that you would have done differently during that time?
No, I honestly, I feel like COVID years, I don't know about you, I don't remember a lot from some of them.
I've heard a lot of that. And, I think one of the only reasons I likely do remember so much from it, because so actually day to day, I work in healthcare. And so that time period is, yes, it's a blur. And sometimes it feels like I lived like 10 lifetimes in the span of a year and a half. but I do remember a lot of things very vividly. But I think I was really in it. I was in it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even, you know, during, I didn't mention this, Brian, we put up our house to sell literally days before the world closed down.
Oh no. Oh wow.
And we had put our offer in on this house where I am now. So you
Mhm.
already know the story. We got the house. But it, that was trying to sell a house and buy a house during that time was crazy. Not to mention the price we thought we could get for a house, like all of a sudden, completely changed. Um, so now that you're talking, those are some of the things that really memories that I don't want to live that again at
Right.
all. But those are things that, again, it was life, life's every day.
Yes, yes, it does. And so look, so after being with Gartner for about 2 years, you decided to resign in June of 21. So ultimately, why did you leave your job during the pandemic?
Yeah. You know, it wasn't the pandemic help, I think, put the last sort of stitch in. I'm not finding the right words for the analogy I want to use. 7.5 months pregnant, so I get to sometimes my brain. Um, I I feel like I started. So my mom, I was at Microsoft. So I got my MBA at the University of Texas McCombs School of Business. That's what brought me to Austin originally in 2014. That's where I am now. In getting my MBA, it was a very transformational, amazing process for me. My goal going into it was to be able to go into corporate. I wanted to move from the agency side, working with the clients, to being the client and to be inside of a big organization, learn really big corporate marketing. And the MBA helped me substantially in being able to create that. And so I was able to land one of the few internship opportunities with Microsoft um, in the summer of 2015, and then got offered a full-time job. And that switch into corporate was a huge accomplishment, and still is a big accomplishment for me and my journey. And working at a Fortune 5 company. I mean, Microsoft arguably, some might say, is the number one company in the world.
Mhm.
To be able to be a part of that, lead through that company was incredible, Brian. And it allowed me to get a more brand management, marketing management kind of role at another amazing multi-billion-dollar company, Gartner. And so I was on this track where I thought, okay, well, I could be C-level. Like, what would it look like if I wanted to? Maybe it's inside these corporations, or maybe it's at a smaller but bigger company. Well, what does that path look like? And I think originally that's where I saw my life going, being a part of another organization and rising to the top as a CMO, or something similar, you know?
Right.
And around once I married Josh, and we got married in 2018, and Josh is a total natural born entrepreneur. Standout Authority is his 16th business. And moving back to Austin, because I did move to Seattle for Microsoft, really being around him and around other entrepreneurs, and also experiencing that in the MBA, I started to get the feeling inside. I had the feeling that, and that's part of the reason why the corporations loved hiring me, because I was very entrepreneurial spirited. So the entrepreneur in me has always been there.
Right.
It took coaching. And it took, 2018, my mom was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer.
Oh, wow.
And I was working on the largest branding project I've ever worked on at Microsoft. And, it took kind of different life moments, getting married, becoming a stepmom, taking 2 children into my life at 30 years old. And just like really getting step away from the career, just like life happening. And this is so much about what I talk about, Brian, right? It's like our careers, our personal brands. It's not just what we're doing in the job. It's all of it wrapped together.
Yeah. That's what I love about your content.
Right. And for me, it was like, yes, I was on the corporate, got the MBA, corporate, here I'm going. I can rock star. She's so talented. She's going here. But inside, I didn't feel purposeful, and I've had many conversations with Josh because I would be doing great work, but just like not wanting to go to work on Monday, feeling anxiety, not feeling good enough. It was like, never felt like enough. The truth is, when you work for somebody else, I don't know if it will ever feel like enough when somebody else is paying you.
Right.
Oh, depends on how your spirit is. It depends on what drives you.
No, that definitely makes sense.
So I was already feeling a lot of these things, Brian, while I was at Microsoft, while I was at Gartner. I got a life design coach. I was, my mom had cancer. We got married. There's a lot of things that I had been experiencing. By the time 2021 came around, I was already thinking to myself, I'm going to be leaving corporate. Probably the coach, Julie Reeser, I was working with, we had said maybe like in 3 years. That was kind of what we talked about. But I already had thought, yeah, like, I don't think I want to be inside, of a corporation. I felt very constricted. I felt like I couldn't share my voice, right? It was like, I love to speak on stages. Well, you can't speak on stage unless you have this and this level and this title. And if you're going to share on social media, you have to do X, Y, Z. And I was like, ugh, it was like, that didn't feel very good for me, for a creative, outspoken person. So I had been doing a lot of work. And Brian, I say to any person that's looking in career switching and they're deciding about what they want to do, is like, you got to do some inside work. You need to work with a coach. You got to, or at least have a community, and like really think about, what are you trying to create for your life and for your vision? It doesn't mean you need to know like your perfect story and your perfect, it doesn't mean any of that. It just means like, what is the feeling? What is the kind of impact you're trying to create? Can you create that inside of a company? If you can't and you want to do it on your own, okay, cool. Like, then what's the plan to get there? And so in 2021, I mean, Josh and I had been talking. We were on Clubhouse. We were getting all this like followers and people were reaching out. Like, we were just getting so much momentum together that Josh and I came up with a plan, for me to leave. And a 3-year plan became a 5-month plan. Wow. And it was like, by the beginning of the year, I said, I'm going to leave corporate by June.
And you did.
And I did, Yeah. And it was scary. I mean, it was scary as hell. Like, the scariest part, if you're coming from a bigger company, coming from any company who's paying you and paying for your health insurance, that the scariest thing is, shit, my health insurance. Yeah. Especially Josh and I are in business together, right? So we had to come make a plan, understand how much do we need to make, what do we need to do so that we can cover a family of four's health insurance and our expenses. Like, what does that look like for us? Right. If you leave your company, Brian, but your husband or wife or partner is still working, is cool working, gets good health insurance, and you're covered, it's awesome.
Right. And that's like a perfect segue now. So now you leave and now you come into this company as a CMO of Standout Authority. So tell us a little bit about the company, and I know you have this Standout Authority experience, right? This kind of 8-week program. So tell us about the company and what participants kind of go through with this 8-week program that you all offer.
So what Standout Authority, what Josh and I, so Josh is the dopamine dealer of LinkedIn, but he's been in, his career really accelerated with his businesses in online advertising. He was doing creating the first digital ad units with companies like MySpace and Google. And when online advertising was like just becoming a thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so for Josh, part of his journey and his evolution as an entrepreneur, as a dad, as a business owner, is that he didn't want to be just driving traffic and conversions. He wanted to create something different where we can build real relationships with people. And we live in a time where it's all about driving demand. It's all about how many likes, right?
Right.
How many leads did you get? Tell me your prospects. Let me spam you. Hey, Rachel B. Bot automation. Like, we're in a time with social media and now with AI that it is overwhelming. We're now getting numb to the amount of content and pushing, that is coming at us from businesses and people and marketers. And so Josh has that feeling. I have a similar viewpoint coming at it from my own experience of working with the big companies, right? Big scale marketing. And I feeling very disconnected from the human that's actually consuming our product or service. And so Josh and I have come together with Standout Authority to say, we're on a mission to humanize online marketing. We're tired of the BS. We're tired of the fake news. We're tired of the spamming. We're tired of being sold to. And what we want to drive is not B2B or B2C, but H to H, human to human connections.
I like that.
And that through real human conversations, we can build relationships. And in those relationships, opportunities will come. 5-6-figure opportunities, speaking gigs, podcasts, you name it. All is possible when we first focus on relationship building. And you would think, Brian, that would be, like that's what we all want, but it is actually game changer for a company to stand for that. And we stand for it in the way in which we do every part of our marketing. We do organic marketing for our clients. We teach organic marketing with our program, our Standout Authority experience. What we are supporting, high-powered C-level executives. We support more of the business owners on our agency side. We support more solopreneurs, consultants through our program. Our goal for you is to be a standout authority, and to do that by sharing your authentic voice, by creating really authentic, great content, by leveraging a platform like LinkedIn, where 4 to 5 people are business decision makers, for you to use a powerful platform like that to develop your thought leadership, to not just be an influencer, but to be a thought leader with influence. That's what we're trying to create. And in that personal branding building, in your content creation that's authentic, and in creating human to human conversations through direct messaging, through your events, through your newsletters, etc., you will build opportunity. And so that's what we do at Standout Authority.
I love
That's
that.
what we do for our clients. And that's what we teach in our Standout Authority experience, which is now on demand. It's the live experience was 8 weeks. Right now it's on demand. So at any time Somebody can go purchase it. It could take you one day if you wanted it to. It could take you 8 weeks if you wanted to. But we are guiding you to attract your ideal audience, which is all about brand building. We're guiding you to engage your followers, which is all about creating content strategy, and using AI to generate your content. And then convert. How do we convert your audience into clients, but even more so into advocates? Because advocates are who are going to stay with you. And that's what we teach in the Standout Authority experience. We have templates and resources, and like everything is ready for you to learn and implement.
No, I love that. And look, I'm as I mentioned earlier in the show, like I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. I get most of my guests. I think last I checked, I think it was around 82, 85% of my guests come through LinkedIn. And my strategy is around, yes, sometimes I get connected with folks, but commenting, just being active on the platform. And so one of the things that I notice in your content, you're obviously a big fan of LinkedIn. And so what are some of the lesser known strategies or techniques that you could recommend for leveraging a platform like LinkedIn to maximize, visibility or engagement, and ultimately, growth and that human to human connection that you talk about?
There are kind of 4 key steps that you need to think about for like baseline, and each step has like multiple levels of like intricacies, but this is what's going to help you grow your visibility and start to get the engagement that you're seeking on LinkedIn. So number 1 is a profile, really having a rock star profile. And we want to make sure a profile is optimized head to toe, but not head to toe, scroll to scroll, I guess.
Right.
For SEO. Because Brian, one of the big things that people do not realize about LinkedIn is that it's 100% optimized for SEO. What does that mean? Everything you put on your profile, everything actually you put in an article or in a post is indexed on the biggest search platform in the world, Google. So somebody was searching for Rachel B. Lee. If you go search your name right now and you're listening to this, you go search your name, I want to know how far up, if not first is LinkedIn, it's probably in the top 2 or 3 in that search appearance. That doesn't just happen. That is because LinkedIn is 100% optimized for SEO. And so when we are developing our profile, you need that to be maximized for SEO, not just SEO, also for your personal brand. You want it to come off who you are, what you're saying to the world, and you want it to be using keywords, showing skills, showing experience that is highly relevant to what you do and who you serve. When you come to Rachel B. Lee, you get a full understanding of who I am, right? And what I do and who I serve. And that is the biggest mistake, Brian, that most people make on LinkedIn, quite frankly, on any social platform, is they're not clear on their brand value proposition and message. And so you leave a lot of white space for people to interpret who you are and what you do. And I don't want that. I don't want that. Right. I want you to know exactly who I am online. Second, content. Creating compelling content. When we do content, we talk about the 10-20-70 rule. 10% of the time, it's personal. So think about that as like the post of me announcing my pregnancy. I'm not going to talk about my pregnancy every single day on LinkedIn. If I was a mom influencer on Instagram, maybe I would talk about it every day, right? But I wouldn't on LinkedIn. 10% of the time is personal. 20% of the time, you're talking about your product or service. So Brian, you are 20% of the time, let's say maybe once a week, if you were doing, let's say 12 posts, let's say you're doing 12 posts in a month, 20% of those, right? So let's call it 2-3 posts should be about what you're actually selling. That's maybe you promoting your podcast. That's maybe you promoting a program you're launching.
Right.
That's only 20% of the time, Brian. LinkedIn does not want you to be overly promotional. Quite frankly, nobody wants anybody to be overly promotional. Those days are over.
Mm-hmm.
And then 70% of the time, it's value industry focused content. So this is where you are bringing your knowledge, your advice, your education, your expertise around the skills that you have. Thus, you're going to see a lot of content from me around marketing, a lot of content around branding, tips for, content tips to reduce fatigue, like imagine all of that kind of stuff, right? I'm educating and giving value. When we do that, we become a thought leader.
Got it. No, I like that a
So
lot.
creating content, rock your profile, create your content, build relationships. So what does that mean? You've got to be connecting with people. Like you've got to be thinking, who's my audience? Who do I want to connect with? Go sending personalized invites. People engage with you. You're connecting with them, like really connecting, really, really connecting. People so often are like, why aren't I getting engagement? Or why isn't my following growing? Well, are you connecting with a few people every single day? No. Do you send a personalized invite when you do connect? No. Okay, well,
That's why.
these are this is must, because LinkedIn is a networking platform.
Right.
So the algorithm wants you to do that.
Definitely.
And then the last piece, Brian, is you want to engage with people that engage with you. You want to create conversations that draw in opportunities. So for us, that's our engagement engine, which I'm not going to go through that right now. But in short, engage with people that engage with you, get into those DMs, compliment and appreciate people, and ask questions so that you can nurture people through on the DM side.
Got
If
it.
you do all of those pieces on a daily basis, you're going to see your profile visibility 2 to 3x. You're going to see your search appearances 2 to 3x. You're going to see your impressions and engagement up probably 100, 200, 300%, and you are going to see new opportunities, whatever that is for you, happening through those DMs. For you, Brian, booking guests is a big part of it. I like speaking on podcasts. So I have done podcast strategy to get on podcasts. Whatever your goal is, if you do all the pieces and you create those conversations, it will all happen for you.
Oh, I love that. And thinking about everything that's happened for you these past few years, what have you learned most about yourself throughout this process?
I say I'm a recovering perfectionist, but I don't know if you can ever take the perfectionist out of somebody. But especially now moving into a phase of being a birth mother and being pregnant. And I think particularly when I was becoming a business owner and stepping into entrepreneurship with Josh, I was trying to control so much, wanted things to be a certain way, and really kind of fighting for those things, right? As with anything in life, you can't control very much. And so the more that I trust and I have good people around me, the more I'm able to create by doing less. And my whole life has been about, if I put in 100%, then I'm going to get back, I hope, 100%. But in putting in 100%, I've usually burnt myself out. And I've now usually lost my interest in what I was trying to get after.
Right.
So now it's about, how do I actually put in maybe 50 to 75% and have really good people, really good intentions, and release and surrender and still get to where I want to go. And I think it's just a beautiful lesson for those that are thinking about starting their own business, going to a startup or just shifting into motherhood or fatherhood, we have to release. We can't do everything. You just can't. You can't have it all. Even though I've tried really hard to have it all, it's not really feasible. So that's definitely not just, it's my biggest lesson. It's my continuous lesson that I am learning every day.
No, I love that. And I appreciate you sharing that. And now one of the phases of the show that I really love talking about is around advice for others, right? I want folks to get something from our guests as they continue to move forward in their respective journeys. And so if someone listening is inspired to really start enhancing their own LinkedIn brand today, what are maybe three practical tips you'd give them right now? And I think you maybe given them some. You have the profile, right? And so if I'm just kind of recapping, we have the profile and some of the connections on there. But anything else that you likely say there, either because I mean we talk about a lot about LinkedIn, maybe social media in general.
I think my first, like more than anything before the practical tips, there's only one of you, and the world deserves to hear you, to meet you, to get to be around your spirit. And there's really, if you aren't putting yourself out there in some capacity online, you're really kind of robbing the world of what you can give. And so doesn't mean you need to be an influencer, doesn't mean you need to have thousands of followers, but there is an opportunity for you to share who you are in some capacity. And in you sharing in an authentic way, you might be able to help one person. You might be able to create one new opportunity for yourself. And so often people are like, my personal brand, I don't want to share. They have imposter syndrome. They're worried about because they work for another company that's not professional. I don't know what to say. My boss is going to think this. My neighbors are going to think this, Brian, like every excuse under whatever the situation is. And I really encourage every single person to share their voice and to try to do that online in some capacity, because we do live in a mobile online world. And that's really where whatever opportunity for you. And to me, the biggest opportunity for me, Brian, is in being able to serve one person. When I get a message that they listen to this podcast and they say, when I get that message, it's, you really inspired me to leave my job and, or you inspired me to get on my profile. There's no better feeling than that.
I wholeheartedly agree. Oh my
That's it.
goodness.
Like that's
Yeah.
what it's to feel. That is what being and living in purpose is about. So that is my overarching, words of wisdom and thoughts. How you do that and the steps you can take specifically on a platform like LinkedIn are what I laid out before,
Yeah.
around rocking your profile, starting to create content, connecting with people, and really getting into conversations, right? Those four things.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, on any social media platform, you're going to need to create content. You're going to need to be connecting with people. You're going to need to be getting into conversations. So that's kind of a strategy. And by the way, we don't just focus on LinkedIn. We do other platforms. And you're going to have to start with your profile. Like that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, without a doubt. And I hear you on that piece, especially around the feedback that you get. I've gotten some really nice notes about different guests that I've had on the show, or how like, hey, I needed to hear this type of thing today. And it was one of the things that solidified for me that, wow, you just never know what someone else is going through, and what type of, or not what type of, but how a certain type of message may resonate with someone at that moment in time. So to your point, like, yeah, if it's just one person, you're like, wow, like that's one, thank you for checking us out. Right. Like, thank you for checking out the show. But I'm
Yeah,
glad that it impacted you in that way, that it made a positive, shift in your space. So appreciate you mentioning
exactly.
that. So what I'd love for you now is really, what is one question that you have for me that I could potentially answer about the show or future work, anything like that?
I'd love to know what's the most powerful strategy you use on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so that's a good one. So for me, what I've been doing is I go through a comment strategy where you mentioned a piece around how it's really SEO optimized. So sometimes I have things that pop up in my feed. I mean, clearly now, like anything like Great Resignation or resigning or I leave a job or quit, those things randomly sometimes pop up in my feed with or without someone from my network engaging with it. But when someone does, I see it. And so that's been a part of my strategy around using comments to like genuine comments, right? About if you put something out there on LinkedIn where you're like, hey, I left my job because of this, I feel better because of that. And I'm now in this freer space. If you took the step to do that, I'm about 95% sure that you'd want to come on the show because no one told you to really post that type of personal message. But to your point about that 10% being personal, I love it when people share that because then that's an in for me to say, hey, I'd love to speak with you because I'm chronicling these stories. And so that's been very helpful as the show continues to grow. I'm still thinking of comments are still working. I get a lot of referrals now, which is great, right? So I'm not short of guests, which is helpful. But I also, I too am in a space where I need to think about what are some of the other things that I could do to, you know, help with the personal brand, right? And if that's now, I mean, yes, the show is great and all of that, but if that is also now, how does that parlay into speaking engagements or moderation of panels or things like that? I'm open to that, right? And I've had an opportunity to do some of those things. And once it hit, I was like, oh yeah, well maybe that could be a lot of fun because I do enjoy having these types of conversations with people, and I can pretty much riff on anything. So it's a
Yeah.
great question.
Yeah. And I mean, your strategy is tried and true for LinkedIn, particularly because commenting is the fuel of LinkedIn, period. And now it's more about the meaningful comments. So it's not just about writing a comment like awesome podcast or thank you. It's about, to your point, writing a full sentence or two or three, actually giving insight or feedback on that post and actually trying to create a conversation in the comments. So that algorithmically is very helpful
Yeah, no,
for
definitely.
you and for the people that are posting. So it's a really smart strategy.
No, thank you. From a top marketing voice, I say thank you. See that's the type of validation I need, right? Um,
We're on
well, Rachel, I just want to say thank you for coming on today. You've given me a few things to think about as like I mentioned, continuing to grow that brand. And I follow your content. And I love the stuff that you share, and would love to one obviously give a shout out to Chris Akar, not only the who runs a car voiceover, but my big brother. So I love him dearly. So thank you for connecting us. But where can our listeners also find you and support your work?
Well, obviously on LinkedIn, the
Mhm.
Rachel B. Lee. The Rachel B. Lee is what my handle is on Instagram, on Facebook, Twitter. I won't say X yet. Okay. I won't.
Me either. Me either. Oh,
I just can't do it. And then, of course, going to standoutauthority.com. And I think we shared my 4 steps to building a brand. There's a helpful personal branding doc for y'all that hopefully will be in the show notes. But that's where you can keep in contact with us, get our newsletters and information.
perfect. Thank you for that. And I will definitely share all of that information in the show notes. I actually read through it. It was very, very helpful. So that'll do it for today's episode. Again, I want to thank my guest, Rachel B. Lee, for joining. I hope you all have a great week, and we will see you next time. Thanks again, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to Why I Left. Be sure to join us next time for more stories from the Great Resignation. Visit us at www.whyileft.co. That's whyileft.co. And subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.